Mama, you want to go for a walk? You want to go for a boat ride? Yeah? You want to go for a boat ride? Oh, look at her. She can just tell with the bounce that she's so happy. So happy. Let's see, there's a paddle. Here it is. Extra paddle just in case. Lost the paddle in the rain that came this week. Been flooded. The lake is about, I don't know, it seems like a couple feet at least higher than normal. Still have some water in the boat from the other day, or this is rain, but it's so funny. I went out to rescue a bumblebee that I saw. Mom, you want to go for a walk? Wait, let me push the boat out. And I saw, we were paddling back from our little walk, and I saw a bumblebee struggling in the top of the water, and so I extended the paddle, and it was able to climb out on it, and then rescued a second one, and then was here on the dock and saw one out there floating around, and I think maybe a fish got it because it disappeared. Saw a second one and jumped in the boat, and I sat. The way the canoe works is if there's two people, the balance is you sit on one end, but if you're solo, you sit on the other. And I sat on the end that's meant for two people, which puts the canoe at an angle. Look at how happy she is. Yeah, it puts the canoe at an angle, just like Mama just did. That angle allows a pivot point, and so when I was sitting back here in the lower pivot point and it was less steady, when I reached over, because the bee didn't grab onto the paddle, so I reached over to scoop it up with my bare hand, and then I capsized in the cold, very cold water with my phone still in my pocket. I was listening to a video that a friend or brother, so see right now, the canoe is really flat and level. Mama, come up on your seat, come up on your bed. If I was to sit on the other end, it would be the nose would be pointed way up in the air, and that's what it was. And so I was in a hurry to rescue this bee, grabbed the bee and capsized, and was just in shock because I'm a pretty well-seasoned waterman, and yet I didn't consider the imbalance of the boat. And what an important point in life is that we need to maintain a balance, or else we're going to be easily capsized, easily flipped over, turned over. It looked like it was going to rain, and then the sun came out, and the winds have died down, and it's just really a beautiful day. And we've had some really bad weather, so we haven't been out much. And with the lake coming up, we can't really walk down the beach or the shoreline like we were to. So as we paddle up here on the neighbor's dock, I'll point out how dramatically the water line has changed. But what a shock it was to tip over. I had the bee in my hand. I tipped over. That's probably the other reason why I tipped over is I don't know why, but I think I recall having the bee. Maybe it was in my right hand. I think it was in my right hand. I tipped over. It's funny. I remember having it in my left hand, but I don't know if that's accurate. But I reached over to my right, I think. Anyway, I capsized. I had the bee in my hand. I didn't want the bee to go under, so I'm trying to keep the bee above the water. And it did gently sting me. It wasn't a bad sting, but it was a light sting, I think. It didn't swell up. I've been stung by a bumblebee before that was really painful. But I put the bee in the boat, and then I realized that my phone was in my pocket, and this phone is a huge expense for me. It's other than food, it's the biggest expense for me every month, because where I am, I'm isolated. I don't have access to Wi-Fi or internet, so I was using up my data every month as I upload videos, and I watch a lot of content on YouTube for study and whatnot. And sometimes I watch Western movies for entertainment, old Westerns. They tend to be, not full of crap like what we see on Netflix and HBO and these, modern films. They just tend to be pretty straightforward stories, usually about conflict. So this phone, it's relatively brand new. It's about 5 or 6 months old, and it's probably my primary tool. It's what keeps me connected with family. I haven't seen my mom only one time in the last 5 months, even though she's the other side of the lake because of the family situation. So it's quite nerve-wracking to think that, my phone is in my pocket, submerged, but I do have a case on it, and the case has a cover over the charging port. So when I pulled the phone out of my pocket in the water and lifted up out of the water, it was still playing the YouTube video. And then the sound was a little distorted. I think the speakers were a little affected, but it's still working. Hallelujah. So just to point out here, the water level, I'm not the best view to do this, but so over the winter time, this neighbor's dock here, we were able to walk down the shoreline, and effectively I was able to just basically almost walk underneath this dock up to this point right here, where there's the legs, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So between the fourth and the fifth row, I was able to just walk down the stone beach. And you can see now that those are probably at least 6 feet between each of those rows. So we're talking about 6, 12, 18, 24, almost 30 feet of beach that was exposed that's now gone. And it's higher than normal right now as well. So I would say it's usually probably about another foot or two out from the shoreline that it is right now. So there's just been a dramatic change in our scenery here. Not only the water, but the green the green is just boom, burst forth, and spring is here. And so the birds are back. You can hear the sparrows. You can hear the sparrows, and life is stirring. And in our situation, me and Mama were both waiting. We were in court a week ago, last Thursday. We finally had our court appearance after it was postponed and rescheduled, I think 3 times so it was like a period of 3 or 4 months. It got postponed. And my stepmother has asked for a warrant to evict me, which would effectively give me, I think, 2 weeks to leave. She's claimed that I've refused to leave, which is not accurate. My father invited me and asked me to come home to help him, and I did that after waiting for that to be here and wanting to be here with him for a long time. I thought after the visit that was now about 2.5 years ago that I wasn't going to see my dad again, and then he seemed to be recovering well and lived another 2 years, and I wanted to be here. He was also getting much more weak during that time, and so my desire was to serve my father and also my stepmother. My dad has been a hoarder and never really got to enjoy his property clean and out from underneath the burden of his own disease as a hoarder and junk collector, so to speak. He had a carport outside by, there's some geese and some babies over here. Just gently swimming. It looks like just one. Looks like a parent with just one baby. I hope they're all okay. Oh, I'm just looking at the water. Sorry, I was looking. Where'd they go? There they are. I only see one baby and one. Oh, there's the other one. There's two parents. And the baby's out walking around on the shoreline. Oh, yeah, I only see two parents and one baby. I hope everybody's okay. So my dad and I had an agreement. He was going to have me stay in the cottage as a Nazir. I can't be in the same house as a dead body, and so with my dad's condition, I didn't want to break my vow and take a chance of breaking my vow, and so we had agreed that I would stay in the cottage, where I had stayed previously, and he had told me that he was going to give me the small life insurance policy that he had, and the tools and the things that he had. I don't know if I want to use the word promise, but it said that, he asked me what I wanted of his stuff, and he had given me things or told me that they would be mine when I was younger, like his shotgun, and he had 2 shotguns and a 22 that we've had that were in our house since well before he was married, and his tools and things like that he had before he was married, and that basically, I would come back and help him and get the house in order and really take the load off his shoulders, that he could, have family and guests come visit him in the last, days or months of his life and enjoy the home that he built with his hands. And that was really the desire of my heart. And then, unfortunately, the cottage there was no preparations for me to stay in the cottage when I came home. And so I was up in the upper house initially, and I came home and then got sick with COVID, and then my stepmom got sick with COVID, and then my dad got sick with COVID and was hospitalized. And it's like, I think that it's really unfortunate, because if my dad had taken any initiative to honor our agreement, and he really didn't, he didn't even designate me as his life insurance beneficiary. So what happened was he died. My stepmother assumed everything as her own. She has not, she produced a will after denying it to me and denying my dad's lawyer's information. She gave me some things, and I found stuck in one of them a copy of the will, didn't even tell me it was there, so I almost missed it. And in that will, which my dad had only mentioned to give me a fireplace and a drill, and none of the things that my dad had previously conveyed to me or discussed were mentioned, but we had already had conversations about those things. And so apparently her attitude is that nothing that's here is mine, but my motorcycle, which has been knocked over on the ground twice. It stood up for 3 years or 2 years since I've been here, and even before, it never fell over. And when I went up to get water last time, it was literally knocked over on its side, like somebody had pushed it over, which is just really alarming. And has denied me water, I don't have, a driver's license because of the blindness in my left eye. California wouldn't renew my license, so I came home without a valid driver's license. She canceled the insurance on the vehicle and the registration, even though, aside from my driver's license issue, I, as his son, I would have been entitled to drive that vehicle registered to my father. But by doing that, and then she had someone come take the plates off of it, and then even come back later without even telling me, and get in the truck after she'd given me the papers on it and scraped off the registration, just seemingly to make it very difficult for me to travel, or to try to prohibit me from traveling. So no way to travel. Had no resources. I came home with $200 in my pocket, less than $200 actually, and I, had this understanding with my father, and then she said that I've refused to leave, but it's like, I missed my flight home. I was not invited to my father's memorial service. I was excluded from his memorial service. I didn't have one person in my whole family and my father's side even offer me condolences to my father's death. And as far as I know, the majority of them all claim to be followers and lovers of Jesus. on the front door of her house it says he lives, and it's, it's just, to me, it's heart sickening, because it's a reflection, it's a betrayal, not just of me. And it was initially, it was so shocking, it was hard not to personalize it, but it's a betrayal of what they say they believe in. It's a betrayal of Messiah. It's a betrayal of his life, his testimony, that we're to love one another, that what we do for the least, what we do for the poor, we do for him, to give if it's within our hand, and it's to give. And not, it's like not a single person in my family has had a concern with, how am I getting water? How am I getting food? Am I able to stay clean? And not a single person has even asked me if I'm okay, asked me if I have a need. I've literally been cared for by strangers. A woman that I met in town who I've grown to love as a sister, has fed me with food from a food bank. A lot of it was expired. And just, I've lived off of complete charity and care of effectively strangers. Whereas my family has completely neglected my need. They have an attitude of judgment. It's so interesting that, Christians say, oh, you're not to judge. But then their whole view is a view of judgment. They're effectively saying that I don't deserve their help. They're saying that, that I'm in this situation because of the choices that I've made. And, that's, to me, it's like completely ignoring the story of Job. They don't know why I'm in this situation. They don't know that this isn't Father's perfect will for my life. He has been teaching me to trust him and not to trust myself. And yet their attitude is such that I don't deserve their help. And my sister has said that, they want to help me, but they can't, which is just, and honestly, it's like a slap in the face. It's just such a joke. My family has means and resources, and I truly believe that if my family loved me, it would be very easy for them to have coordinated something with my stepmom. They could have offered to collectively help me buy the cottage so that I have a roof over my head, so that I don't have to go back and live in a broken down van in California. But I missed my flight, so I don't have a way back to fly to California. And if I was to fly to California, the few belongings that I do have left in the world that are here would be here, not in California, which means that I don't have the resources that I need in California to work. Like my dad's tools, the whole reason why he talked about giving me his truck and having the truck to drive back was to take my belongings back with me, to have tools so that I could work and be viable. And, after putting my life on hold, to be available to my dad. And just this attitude that, I'm on my own and I'm an intruder here, I'm a squatter. I mean, if they didn't claim to love Messiah, Christ, if they didn't say that they love God, I really wouldn't, I don't think I would, sure, you could say morally it's really grotesque, but I wouldn't necessarily have the expectation of love. But when you say you love Messiah, when you say that you love and want the will of, they use the word God, Elohim, and yet you ignore the need of another, whether that's your family, whether that's a drug addict, whether a drug addict is a drug addict or not. I'm not a drug addict, but whether a drug addict is an addict or not, they're still a creature or a child of the living Creator, and they still warrant our love, our compassion, our concern. And to close your hand to someone because they're an addict, and for example, to not give money because you say that that they're going to use it on drugs, that's not always true. And you could still provide food. There's still other ways to provide, but this is a tremendous failure. It's hateful to our Father. It's hateful to the Creator to not care for one another. In traditional Judaism or Orthodox Judaism, like charity is known to be like so important. It's what we do in charity and in love for one another is like one of the highest forms of sacrifice and offering to our living Creator, our living Elohim, our living Father. So it's a very interesting, bizarre situation. It's initially it was so shocking to me. It's so painful to be excluded from my father's memorial service, I couldn't even comprehend how not one of my uncles or my cousins or my aunts even said to me, we're sorry for your loss. My dad was a difficult man to live with. They know that he was abusive. I think that's one of the reasons why they're so sympathetic to my stepmom, is they know my dad was a very selfish, abusive man, and yet he still had sensitivity and desire towards father. I don't think that he was an overcomer, but I do believe that he still had good virtues, and I believe that he has tasted death. I believe and have hope that he will awake from that death. It says that those that were in death, I believe that they will be raised up, and when they're raised up, those that have overcome will wipe the tears from their eyes. And I pray and have even seen a vision of being reunited with my father and my son. And I don't know that will happen in this life. Honestly, my father was hateful towards me, and my son has been incredibly hateful towards me, and it's been heartbreaking in both cases. So the water is receding, because receding, is that the right word? Recede? I don't even think that's the right word, but it's lowering, because it was up, and it was actually covering the feet of that bench the last time we were here. So we're going to go for our walk. Just wanted to offer a brief update. And so we're waiting to know, are we going to be evicted? Is it going to be postponed to or shifted to a higher court? My attorney has effectively, Mama, stay here, has submitted a motion to dismiss, under the basis that I'm not a tenant, which is how they presented me as a tenant, that I am, more than a tenant as my father's son, and there's more to this matter that needs to be resolved, and that's really the truth. Unfortunately, my attorney was supposed to send a proposal for terms, and it seemed that there may have been an openness to have terms discussed for me to buy the cottage, and he didn't perform. He didn't do that. I don't know why. I've asked him for an answer. He talked about it in court, but what he said in court didn't reflect my understanding or recollection. And so I have to trust, and I've been trusting the Father, even with this attorney that was assigned to me through a nonprofit organization for those that have no means or have limited means. And I've been challenged to not react to what I feel is a deficiency in his performance, but to put my trust not in him. Come on. But to put my trust in Father. Come here, baby. I'm going to put you on a leash. Come here. Come here, good girl. So that's where we're at today. We are in limbo, but in the Father's hands, and continuing to learn to trust Him, seeking Him, seeking His righteousness. I read today's Proverbs 15. He says He loves those that seek His righteousness. So we continue to seek His righteousness, which is lawfulness according to His word and spirit. No. Stay with me. No. And I'm thankful for that process. No. Just teaching her to stay on the leash. I've given her some freedom to run around during these walks, but there's times she hasn't come back. And I don't want to be in that position where she doesn't come back. It might be over on a neighbor's property or something. So, some of you have seen some of our videos of our walks and our paddles, and it's incredible just the transition through the seasons, the amount of green that's just bursting, the colors are starting to come out, flowers, not just visually, but even the sounds, the birds. It's beautiful, and it's a time of transition. It's a time of renewal. It's a time of fruitfulness. And I heard a man share a message over the internet about how it talks about in the word that let the poor declare themselves as rich. And along the ideas that we are living in his promise. And the joy when we're being challenged and when we're alone and when we're suffering can seem distant. But to remember that Yusuf or Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers and was a slave and was imprisoned, but was delivered through that to save not just his family, but to be a blessing to all of Egypt and even the world because of the 7 years of famine. And yet there was food because of a slave boy who had been sold, betrayed by 10, all of his brothers, but the one that was unborn. The heartache of that, the loneliness of that, the despair of that. And yet look how it was used to bless his family, to bless him, to bless even the world. And so I look at his life as such inspiration. I look at the life of Job, as such inspiration. After such loss, his wife said, curse Elohim and die. And he said, Yahuwah gives and Yahuwah takes. Blessed be the name of Yahuwah forever. Amen. I am in agreement. And no. She's really struggling, wants to chase, being a hound. It's really hard for her to not just follow her nose and hunt, especially when she's had some of that freedom. It's got to be, she just runs through the woods with such joy. So I'm inclined to maybe let her go for a little bit, but I'm concerned. It's like a father. You want your children to have the freedom and joy, but you also want to protect them even from themselves. This is my favorite part. This is like a little nook or nest. It was the only part that really had the green all through the year with the pines and the firs. Wow, listen to this bird song. I love it. The men that we know as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were cast into a fiery furnace. The men that threw them in were died because of the heat of the fire. It was so hot, and yet they lived. And it says that the king saw them in the fire with the fourth. They had the appearance as a son of Elohim. And brightness that would imply brightness like angelic, and that he saw 4, and that he said to bring them out. And when they brought them out, they didn't even have a smell of fire upon them. What an amazing account. What an amazing account. And in the book of Ecclesiasticus, or it's also called the book of Sirach, it's one of the removed books in the Apocrypha, it says that, my son, when you set yourself to serve Yahuwah, be prepared to be reduced to a low estate. For gold and silver are refined by fire, but acceptable men by adversity. And so, for those who say they know the word, like my sister, and don't recognize what it says, that, this adversity that I've encountered in my life isn't necessarily because of my choices. Sure, of course you could say it is, but does it mean that those choices were made with the wrong intention or desire or purpose? I don't think so. It's not my experience. When I chose to stay local to my children when they were 4 and 6 after their mother separated herself from me, I chose to do that because I knew that they were vulnerable, and I thought it was more important for them to have me in their life and the presence of their father in their lives at that young age than it was for me to go out and continue to make, $200,000 or more a year. And that came with a cost. It came with a burden. It was not easy. And I did it out of love for my children. I didn't choose money. I chose to take on hardship, even working up to 4 jobs at, fractions of the pay that I was accustomed to, so that I could stay there and be close to my children. And then when I had further hardships and didn't have a choice to stay, my family condemned me as if I made a choice to leave my children and abandon them, which is just, it's like when you consider that against my own reality of what I sacrificed to be there with them, at times it's been maddening, even infuriating. And I've had to go through this process, I believe, to see that spirit of self-defense, or that spirit of righteous anger, can lead to unrighteous anger, can lead to bitterness. And this incredible picture of the Messiah lowering himself to wash his disciples' feet, those that were effectively beneath him, he washed their feet, lowered himself below them, washed their feet. And he did this even to the one that he knew would betray him, into such cruelty, into such pain and agony and death. And yet he still lowered himself and washed his feet. And that picture has been so deeply touching and convicting to me that it's helped me to shift away from the bitterness of what vinegar smells and tastes like. No. Just because you see a squirrel doesn't mean you chase. Good girl. And to recognize that I don't want no. She's got to learn some restraint. I've had to as well. Just no. So I've had to learn out of desire in my heart to see that I don't want to be as this bitter, like disciplining the dog. It's hard. I don't want to be harsh with her like that. This dog loves me. Today she came up and jumped in my lap wanted to come up in the truck when I was out there in my dad's truck having coffee. And then she wanted to be even closer to me. She wanted to come over and sit in my lap. Such a blessing. And so I've had to recognize and see this bitterness, and to separate myself from it, to choose and say, I want to be sweet as honey, not bitter as vinegar. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that process, as painful as it's been. The heartache, even though it's been heartache, I believe it's been for my refinement. And I'm open and I'm submitting myself to Father's will, even if that means poverty, even if that means loneliness, even if that means suffering. And isn't that what the Messiah demonstrated? I think that's poison ivy right there. Yeah, we got to be careful. So I didn't expect to speak this long. I'm just sharing. My approach is not to present myself as a teacher, as authority, but as a brother that's pursuing righteousness, seeking to work out my salvation in fear and trembling and reverence for the Creator, the King of the universe, and the Lamb that is the good and faithful servant who came and laid his life down out of love for his Father, for our Father, for his Elohim, for our Elohim. He said, I go to my Father. I go to my Elohim, your Elohim, my Father, your Father. And amazingly enough, he said that we could do things even greater than him, and I still do not comprehend how that is possible, given what he did, what he accomplished. But I'm thankful. I'm thankful to have heard his voice, to have heard the call, to repent, to turn from lawlessness. As we say, Shama Yisrael, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Echad, Hehavath Ithai, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Makal Lebavak, Uvakal Nefashak, Uvakal Medak. Hear, Israel, Yahuwah, our mighty one, is one. Yahuwah is one. Ehad, union. That word, Ehad, union, it means to be one. And the first two letters, Elaf, Heath, means brother. And Chad is one. The Elaf means to be, to embody as a prefix. El, to be the authority. Ashar, to be joy, to be prince. Shin Reish, fire head, refinement of a head. That's how we become a prince. To be of the fire and to be as the head. And the head is what leads the body. And we need to be refined. Our mind and our spirit, our mind and our hearts need to be one so that we can lead our body, lead our children, lead our families, and serve one another and serve our Father. Because to love our Father is to love our brother. To serve our Father is to serve our brother. And this is the way. Hallelujah. Love and respect. Always blessings. In the name of the rock, which is a father and a son, sharing one house. And that name, greetings, blessings, love, and respect always. Your servant, Mesh, and little mama.